The official release, if we can get it done that quick after City Council authorizes it on July 11th, would be on July 12th. It may be a little bit tight, but that's a planning goal for the timeline. We're suggesting that a pre-proposal meeting be scheduled for July 21st, and this is where there would be an opportunity for any and all interested parties, but especially those interested in proposing, would have a chance to ask questions. And it's likely that from those questions there could be refinements and addendums. So this is a very standard procurement process that we're following and trying to keep it as fair and open as possible, but yet per the procurement guidelines and actually state statute on RFPs. Questions from the haulers could be submitted, and there's a deadline for that proposed for July 25th. And then the city will respond back with answers to those questions. So again, we're trying to, any questions that come in would go through the designated city contact, either Sean, or if she happens to be on vacation, I imagine it'll be Chuck All. But Sean would receive these questions and then make sure everybody gets the same answers back so that everybody gets the same information. And then right now, the deadline for proposals due is August 19th. And one of the questions that came up, and Jennifer asked this last meeting, was what about communications with City Council and on other issues? And the proposed RFP suggests that the entire trash collection system analysis be put on hold for this period. It's roughly 39 days, for roughly 5 weeks, that we not get into discussions about the existing hauling system, that second track that Sean is working on, or get into other issues, perhaps even recycling or yard waste. All of it's related in one sense to the overall system analysis. And the RFP is one track of that overall analysis, but it's best that we keep those communications for this short period of time during this competitive proposal process through the designated city staff. So with that, then, per the statute, we're suggesting that the names as per the RFP guidelines and statute and the Minnesota Government Data Practices Act would be released, but not the details of the proposals themselves. And then August through September, the city would conduct internal and confidential review of those proposals. It's likely that there will be detailed analysis, not only economic analysis of the proposals, but the other criteria, matching the goals that the city has set for this process, and there'll be a ranking process. Very similar to the recycling RFP. We're modeling this after the template of the recycling RFP, but going into some additional detail from this trash collection systems analysis and those goals that were specified by the city earlier. September 26th is the current target date for a city council meeting to receive report from the staff and from the trash hauling working group and review findings and recommendations to date, including a summary review of those proposals as submitted. Now, we're suggesting that the proposal submittal due date, we saw earlier, August 19th, would actually end the planning period as per the organized collection statute, and that the negotiating period would begin. And so again, that's why we're suggesting that the competitive proposals be submitted up through August 19th, and then the city would have the option to have additional discussions, and even negotiations as per the statute. So what we're trying to do is overlay the organized collection statute with what is more typical and normal process for procurement on an RFP and receiving proposals. And right now, the target date is November 28th for a city council meeting, and that's when the contract could be authorized to be executed and/or improvements to the existing system could be authorized. So again, two tracks coming together November 28th. So let's get into some of the content for the moment. There's been questions. Go ahead. Yes.
Two things, actually. I totally agree with your take on with whom anybody should be communicating. First of all, it would seem odd to me to have any kind of a contact from an individual trash hauler during this period of time when I never have before. So they can say it would be about something else, but like, give me a break. Do I look dull? If I haven't heard from anybody for 3 or 4 years on something, all of a sudden having to communicate with me would seem a little weird. The other thing is, on the end of the negotiating period and well, first of all, the proposals due. This got kind of, in my estimation, fuzzy and a little overbroadened when we did the recycling one, because there was, well, wait a minute, we didn't understand, and now we need to do our option 14 of this version and all that. I think we need to be very clear about when proposals are due and when they're done. I mean, that's it. I don't really want to go there again. It was one thing because the number of proposals from recycling companies wasn't numerous, but I still think that was flawed. That's my personal opinion. And I don't want to do it again. Certainly don't want to do it over trash. We say they're due. This is the RFP. You know, they have. You're building in ways for them to give their possible options and what they might do, and fine. But 2 days later, saying, "Oh, you know, no." The deadline is the deadline, because we could play that game for a long time.
Yes.
Just a quick question on the schedule. All right, the light seems to be staying on, at least on my mic. I don't know about in my brain. So under September 26th, the City Council meeting, it says the City Council will receive and comment on final report from Trash Hauling Working Group. So should we be assuming that this group is meeting again kind of mid to late August and through September to review those the proposals, or what? What's the plan?
Well, thank you. The date isn't specified here because it's actually intended to be a closed session, and so there would be a 6th meeting.
Just one.
Of the working group. Right now, that's the schedule. It may take more than one if it's as complex as we might anticipate, but it all depends on the responses and the nature of the responses. So the current proposal, and there hasn't been thorough discussion or even legal review on this, but the concept is that this group would meet in private, in confidence, with those proposals not to be released. So there's a need for keeping the information that you receive confidential for the protection of all parties, frankly, those responding as well as the city's interests. And it may take 2 meetings, yes, but there is certainly a plan for a 6th meeting in closed session. Yes.
Just since Kathy was also bringing it up, and there was some mention of this, the restricted communications thing is just envisioned to be during that proposal time, correct? That's all right. I mean, just because I know we've all had casual conversations after meetings and stuff like that with haulers, and want to make sure that there's no perception that there's anything wrong with that kind of thing in terms of where we are right now in this process, as opposed to when there's an RFP
right
out there and there could be, you know, something untoward perhaps, or perception of it.
And I do recall very clearly the direction that was given by City Council at your last workshop on this, and you were concerned about the tight timeline. And so part of the response to that concern is to make sure that there's an open discussion at this period before July 11th, before the RFP is actually released. And so there's actually going to be a draft released in public. There'll be the 5th working group next Wednesday. There'll be the City Council meeting on July 11th. And there are no ability to restrict the communications until the final RFP is released, officially released. In the meantime, as we're in this position now and we're encouraging the comments and the open mic here at the end of these meetings, there should be an open dialogue and get feedback on some of this, some of these questions and some of these issues in the proposal schedule here. So it's a fairly tight window. We understand it's a tight timeline, but we're also trying to keep on schedule because of that restricted communication requirement.
I just wanted to add a follow-up comment on that, which is that this is such a strange process to be going through, and especially given that it's something that, frankly, not a lot of cities have done for various reasons in the last 20 years. So we're kind of, a lot of it has to be sort of made up as we go along. One of the things that has occurred to me is that I know that haulers may have concerns about competitive information with respect to details of their operations and things like that. And so I guess, well, we have the open forum here for things. I know that you guys, on behalf of the working group, on behalf of the cities, have had meetings with the haulers and the opportunity to talk with them individually. So I would just want to suggest that haulers that have things that they think should be, we should be cognizant of, but that maybe they don't want to say out in public, something operational about something or another. I don't know exactly what it might be because I'm not the expert in that. But I want to make sure that people feel free to communicate that, whether to staff or to working group members, but most appropriately to staff, if it's something that could have an impact on how the RFP ought to be shaped, to make sure, I think from our standpoint, that we get the most competitive bids with the best service options, and to make sure that we don't inadvertently include something in the RFP that makes it impossible for somebody to bid, or sort of makes any kind of foregone conclusion unintentionally, and I certainly wouldn't intend to do that in any case. But so people, I would just say, should be strongly encouraged to bring anything to the attention, and if it's not comfortable to bring it out in an open meeting like this, to bring it to the attention of staff or whoever, to make sure that it's addressed.
Point well taken, and I think we're highly sensitive to that already in terms of trying not to set criteria that would eliminate anyone.
Well, again, I'll go back to my experience working with the state, and the way we handled RFPs generally, in fact, in all cases I can remember, is that we designated a certain number of staff members who were going to be evaluating RFPs. Those staff members were told, and we reiterated on every RFP that went out, if you get any question that you think remotely relates to the RFP, your only response is to tell the questioner to contact the staff person. End of discussion. You don't go into any discussion about it. You just direct the question to the staff member. That way, the only ones that you really care about in terms of these questions that could come up in any kind of discussion are the ones who are doing the evaluations. They're the ones that can be influenced. As far as proprietary information, we always tried to structure the RFP such that we weren't asking for proprietary information. And if a respondent felt that there was some request for information that they didn't want to share with the public or with other vendors, they simply put in their RFP, we consider this to be proprietary information, and we're not going to reveal that. And so, I mean, that's at the discretion of the person who's making the application, and we generally had to respect their definition of whatever they consider proprietary. So I think that those two things cover Kathy's concerns and maybe some of John's as well. The key issue is making sure you only have one staff member that is answering questions, so that all the questions that come in are not only responded to the questioner, but are also sent back to all the other applicants so that they know what the question was and what the response was. if you have two or